Nadia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Well, first off, we'd love to get to know you a bit. So if you could please introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Nadia Del Castor. Um, I am a psychotherapist trained in person-centered because there's so many different modalities in psychotherapy. So I will go on and explain to you, if you like, about um, different modalities and why I came to choose the one that I am doing.
Yeah, I would love to.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to start by saying how I decided to do what I do. Um, as a child, I think about age of 11 is the time that I remember one of my cousins asked me, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "I want to be a psychologist," which I had forgotten about. My cousin reminded me. Um, I think I decided that I'm not going to do that because I kept hearing, oh, all the psychologists are mad themselves, they're all crazy. And I just obviously didn't want people to think I am crazy.
Yeah.
So I didn't, and life happened. I didn't. I lived in Iran. Um, there was a revolution and the war. Everything happened. I ended up coming to England and I did biochemistry at university because that's what all Middle Easterns do, science or engineering or something. And then I dropped out because I just hated it. I didn't like it. And I went on doing so many different things in my life, different careers, different things. Um, I remember one day I was doing a job that I absolutely hated. And I remember the day, exactly the day that I was thinking, what is it that I always wanted to do? Why am I not doing what I want to do? And then all of a sudden it came to me and I was like, oh, I wanted to become a psychologist. So I started researching, I started looking into all different modalities and I didn't even realize there's so many different theories out there. So I decided to do a foundation course, which I did to kind of work out what I want to do. One of the people that I really liked, his theory is called Carl Rogers. So his theory is based on actualization, self-actualization. What that means is every human being would like to be, to if we create the correct environment for human beings, we are able to reach our full potential. And so he uses that in therapy. And the other thing that I loved about it is there is no power. There is no therapist and the client. You have to make it balanced. So there's nobody that actually has got power or, feels like I'm an expert. And I love that because I hate preachers and I don't want to preach. And you don't give advice to clients. You just create the environment for the client to be able to sit down, feel not judged at all, feel complete empathy from the therapist. You're giving them what we call UPR, unconditional positive regard, which I would actually say that is like giving pure unconditional love to your client. Doesn't matter what background they're from, they have, what color they have, what sex they are, what sexual orientation they have. You just give them at that 50 minutes complete understanding to them. And then through that, they start working through their problems. And they always come up with their own answers, even though they normally feedback and say, oh, you were right what you said. And I always think, well, I didn't say that. You did. So that's so it's called person-centered, and that's what I do.
Yeah. Oh, that is nice. Okay, so when it comes to the work that you do, does anybody need like a specific quality or just anyone can do it?
I suppose theoretically anybody can do it. You can study and try to implement it, and you can do it. However, I think with therapy, to become a therapist, you have to be really down to earth and have the ability to connect with people. And that's one of the things that is the most important things. You can have PhDs as much as you want, as many as you want. However, if you're not able to connect with people on their own level, you bring yourself in their own level, what we call embodying your client. If you're not able to do that, I think therapy doesn't work. So that is the quality a good therapist, I always think, should have, to be able to relate to people. Because let's face it, nobody has experienced everything in our life. You know, I have experienced certain things, you have experienced certain things, but I have to be able to understand my client's experience, even though I haven't experienced it. So to be able to build that therapeutic relationship. And as a therapist, you have to be so aware of that, because if you don't have that, and if your client doesn't feel that, they're not going to open up. They're not going to be able to talk to you. They're not going to be able to talk about, because people come and talk to you about the deepest secret that nobody else has ever heard it. So what makes you the person that they trust to speak to? And that's when it comes to that being a human, sitting them on their own level, exactly the same level, and being able to listen. And I think, if you have got that quality, that makes you a good therapist.
All right, so therapy, I believe, is based on like a strong emotional connection between the therapist and the client. So how do you separate that emotion from your personal life and not let it affect your personal life, and just be like, okay, this is my job. This is what I do for work. I'm not going to let it affect me outside of working hours, let's say.
Yeah. I mean, that has been my biggest challenge. And I think biggest challenge for all my colleagues that I have spoken to try to separate yourself from that, from the client's world, after 50 minutes. And at the end of the day, we're all human, and we are going to struggle. There is point, because a lot of therapies are long-term therapy as well. So you actually have built this relationship. So you care for your client, and that's how it works. The client knows there is care. I'm not trying to rescue my client, but I do care for my clients. So when there's distress, it's really difficult not to be distressed. And the way I work, and I love working the way I do, is I embody my client. And in those 50 minutes, I do my best to understand my client, to be my client. It's almost like putting myself in their body and feeling. There are times that I might actually cry with my client. And I think that's so important, because the client feels heard. They need to feel heard. They need to feel the therapist is taking it all in. But then there is that difficulty after, to be able to take yourself out and realize that this is not your life, that was your client. However, I actually think there's not anything wrong with therapists to feel emotional after a session for a while, because that shows you're human, right? That shows you're not a robot. You have feelings. So there are times that I find it difficult to separate myself, to take myself out. But I've developed different things that I do. I pick up the phone and phone my friends and chat about different things. Obviously, confidentiality is the biggest thing, so you can't talk about your client, but I chat about my daily things. I talk about little things that make us laugh. I watch a comedy set. That really helps me. I watch something that makes me laugh. I put on Netflix with my, favorite comedians. But that doesn't, I like the fact that I feel, right? I don't let that affect me anymore. I mean, at the beginning of training, obviously it does. There are times that you don't sleep. Night after night, you don't sleep because you're just constantly thinking about, oh my God, what? But the fact is, one of the things that mainly helped me was I realized I'm not here to solve their problems. They are going to solve their own problems. And that helps me, that I'm not here to rescue them. I'm here just to listen and make the environment good enough for them to be able to get there.
Yeah. I mean, whilst you were talking and you talked about how like it does feel good for your client to see that you're actually listening and taking it in. I was like, this is probably one of the jobs that is most likely not threatened by AI.
That's not the reason I chose it, but yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, you want somebody that gets you, right?
Exactly, yeah.
You know, you can go and talk to your friends. We all talk to our friends, but we are always presented with a solution, aren't we?
Yes.
Right? So we talk to our friends and we say, oh, you know, I have this issue. And then they always say, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? Why don't you try? And you're like, no, I just want to talk.
Yes.
I don't want you to give me solutions. Let me talk. Because whilst you're talking, like 99% of the time, you come up with a solution.
Yeah.
Yes, the therapists, what we do, we are actually asking the right questions. We ask open-ended questions. We invite you to explore more. That's what we do. We invite you, you know, I'm not, you know, Freud was very directive. Mine is not very directive. I invite you to kind of talk a little bit more, explore. You know, when you said that, what did you mean by that? So, but I'm not advising you. I'm letting you go deeper into it.
Yeah.
And no, AI is not going to be able to do that.
No, exactly. Well, so because the topic today is eating disorder, one of the things that we do associated, I mean, obviously there's more. You're going to talk about also how trauma influences it, but beauty is always associated with eating disorders. And like, what is really beauty? That's like something that changes within like 5 years or from country to country. But also like, why do we give so much importance to beauty? Why is it so important for us to be beautiful?
Because we are visual people. We have eyes, so we see things and we like things that are beautiful. There's things that are beautiful to us, right? Somebody might love flowers, different, you know, certain type of flowers. They see beauty in those flowers. Like, you know, you might be, sometimes I'm walking with my sister and all she looks at is flowers. To me, it's like, okay, it's flowers. But that's beauty. And it's just beautiful that everybody sees beauty in different things. One of the reasons we have eating disorder is to do with our excessive need of having the right shape and the right weight, right? And throughout the centuries, that has changed. Beauty changes. In different countries, the beauty is different, interpreted differently to another country. In different centuries, it was different. So, for instance, years and years ago, they had famine, and being fuller size was a sign of being rich and being beautiful. Having a round face was being beautiful. Nowadays, having a round face is not beautiful to some people, right? So it changes, but we also have to bring into social media nowadays that they tell us, they dictate to us what beauty is, right? Whether there are teenagers, whether it's somebody my age, whether it's somebody your age, any age, we are exposed to so many different pictures, so many different videos that, you know, makeup videos, how to, you know, it's better to have fuller lips, fuller bust, fuller buttocks, you know, before it used to be like in the 90s and it became like you have to be straight, there's nothing. And now Kardashians, they brought a little bit shape into it. To a certain extent, is actually quite nice. It's just when it becomes excessive that it becomes a problem. But beauty is something for us as human beings, because we look and we sense. One of our big, you know, senses is our eyes. We decide what beauty is. Which this is going to actually take me to, I wanted to talk about comparison. That is our biggest problem. Is the evil. I always say comparison is the evil. Growing up, a lot of us, not all of us, have always been compared to other people.
Yeah.
To cousins, to friends' kids, to the neighbor's kid. You just been brought up, oh, look at so-and-so. Not just beauty, by the way, with everything. Look, they study so well. Look at them, they done this. Look at their son is so polite. But mostly aesthetically, look-wise. Look, oh my God, she's so beautiful. Oh my God, he's so beautiful, handsome. So that teaches us. So it becomes a learned behavior. So we are not born to compare ourselves with other people, but it becomes a learned behavior that we've learned from our environment, that we compare ourselves to other people. Because when we see someone as a young child, somebody says, oh my God, look at her, she's so beautiful. You instantly think, am I beautiful? Am I the same? So you want to be the same. But nobody says you're beautiful as you are. And everybody's beauty is different. Not everybody has to have the same beauty. Somebody is beautiful because they're tall, but somebody is short, but they're still beautiful. And beauty is not just, we haven't been taught, beauty is not just about outside. Beauty is about somebody as a whole, the person as a whole. You know, how many people you hear of, let's say, we don't know, you know, top models, but a lot of models, they're known for not being nice people.
Yeah.
And I wonder, if you work with these people day in, day out, do you see them as beautiful anymore?
Probably not.
I doubt it, you know? So unfortunately, we are not taught about a whole being, about being a good human being. And the social media, it's all about you're outside, you should look this way. But nobody, hardly ever, you see in social media, somebody is talking about someone's being a good human being, somebody's done a good deed, how wonderful someone is, how emotionally intelligent someone is, because that's important. You know, I'm not talking about academic intelligence, but emotional intelligence, it's so important. And nobody looks at that. But to a certain extent, it's understandable. When you see someone, the first thing you see is their look. So of course you're gonna be like, oh, she's beautiful, or he's beautiful, or not. That's understandable. But comparison is what we've been taught. That we will talk about that, how that goes into eating disorders.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you mentioned the model industry.
Yeah.
Like they have slightly changed now. We see that there's more voluptuous models, which seems like there is actually a demand or a need for different body shapes. But also like the model industry is associated with eating disorder as well.
Oh, yeah.
Actually. Yeah.
I always hear about how these supermodels, they have to be on strict diets,
Yeah.
so they don't lose their figure or anything like that.
Yeah. But I mean, that takes us to one of our questions, which is
Yeah.
like, how do you differentiate between an eating disorder and a healthy change of lifestyle?
Yeah. Eating disorder is compulsive. It's almost like an addiction to it is an addiction. It is an addiction because you either eat and throw up, or you don't eat, or you eat but you take laxatives. There's 3 different types of eating disorder. There's a purging disorder, there's a bulimia disorder, and then we have anorexia disorder. When anything becomes excessive and you do it to maintain certain way, and it becomes a way of life, then it becomes an eating disorder. If somebody is depressed and because of their depression, they've been eating a lot, they put on weight, they haven't got eating disorder, they're just depressed. So it's so difficult to actually recognize who has got eating disorder. Obviously, when you see somebody extremely underweight, that's understandable. It also is very difficult for children, for us to understand children when they have eating disorder, because they can't explain, is it because they don't have appetite, or is it because they don't want to put on weight? So that's the part that I always find most difficult to understand if there's an eating disorder. Healthy eating is, we all want to look our best, right? Yeah. It's the same as this theory. I was actually thinking about it the other night, that is the same as the theory of Carl Rogers, that we want to reach our full potential, right? But to have realistic ideas, that's what's important. I cannot be 5'11". Impossible. Yeah. I cannot have blue eyes, right? But I can have blonde hair, right? So it's being realistic in what we want to change ourselves to, but also to learn what is enough. We have that issue. What is enough? When am I going to be enough for myself? Yeah. Right? So a healthy eating is you being careful, because we all have a weight that we feel comfortable in, right? Yep. We all have, if you put on 2 kilos, you might feel like not feeling comfortable, so you start eating healthy, right? But you're bound to have burgers now and again. Why would you deny yourself from that, right? You know, the fact is, sweets are lovely. Why not have them? All in moderation, though, right? The reason we go on diets is because a lot of times we eat so much, then we have to go on a diet. But if you think about it, if you have enough carbs, if you have enough protein, if you have enough sweets and sugars, just in moderation, you don't need to go on a diet, right? So, I'm sitting here talking about diet and I feel guilty because I've been on so many diets myself. Yeah. Right. We all, I think a lot of us have been, trying with men is all about the pecs and the 6-packs, and you have to do this and do that. Those are, as long as it becomes a good hobby. Yeah. Almost. Yeah. But it becomes an obsession, then we're having a problem.
Yeah.
All right. So how does an eating disorder affect your daily routine and maybe even relationships?
Well, it affects it hugely. It depends on different type of eating disorder you might have. With somebody that has got anorexia.
Could you also tell us a bit more in detail what these different eating disorders are?
Yeah. With anorexia, it's a difficult mental health that it's kind of mixed with body dysmorphia, that you see something different in the mirror. I might see you as, oh my God, you're too skinny. This is not healthy. This is scary, but you still see yourself as fat. And that is something that you have to train them to learn, and it's a very difficult process, and it takes years for them to realize that they're not fat. So that's a mental health issue, that you see yourself completely differently to what you are. Because if you see yourself as skin and bone, surely you will stop and you start eating. So with anorexia, when you eat, you feel enormous guilt. You just don't want to eat because you think that's the only thing that I can do to control myself. So it's about control. If you look back to anorexia, most of it comes to control. They haven't had control at some point, and that's the only thing they can do to control. Not eating is a control, is a way of controlling their emotions. So control is a big thing in mental health issue. OCD, you know, it could be OCD that you just want to constantly clean, or constantly you have to check the door has been. This is all about control. That is a mental health issue. It goes back to mental health issue.
Yeah, I know of someone who actually struggles eating at home because they have OCD and they don't want to cook and make the place dirty. So it's like this evil circle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a vicious circle. When you get to this kind of state of mind, it becomes a vicious circle. With bulimia, it's more manageable to a certain extent, because they eat a lot, so they feel really guilty and they make themselves throw up. So it's the body image, but at the same time it's not body image. It's about the amount that you consume. Because you want to eat, there's certain things you want to eat, but you eat, and then there's a huge rush of guilt that I shouldn't have. So to feel better, you go and throw up. But actually, they used to do that in Old England. They used to actually, the kings would have a feast, but they had a bucket there for them to throw up. Yeah, for them to throw up and eat again. Because the enjoyment of eating, and then you think, I'm going to put on weight. Yeah, it used to be a thing that they actually had a big, pot next to them to throw up and then start eating again. So this goes back in centuries. Anorexia, not so much, but bulimia does. And that wasn't, for the kings, it wasn't about losing weight. It was about wanting to eat more, enjoying, right? So it was about, no, I want to eat more. Oh my God, look at this. I want to have it all. So that's a different kind of thing. Then we have purging disorder. That is not because they eat too much, but what they eat, they want to get rid of. So purging is a little bit different. They don't overeat. And purging is something a lot of us have done. A lot of us that have gone on a diet, we've taken these pills that makes you, go to the toilet, right? So a lot of people do on a daily basis. A lot of people do, they do them. But when it becomes excessive, that is a constant thing, that's when it becomes a problem. So there's these three different ones and why we have it. Anorexia is a very, very difficult mental health issue that needs to be dealt with professionals. And a lot of times, unfortunately, we lose people to anorexia because they have no immune system, which is a big shame. I can go into it a little bit more later on.
Yeah. And sorry, and how does it affect their relationships?
Affect their relationships. So they actually don't want to go out anymore. They don't hang out with people. They don't talk to their friends as much, because how do you go out? You go out for a coffee. You go out to have a drink. You go out to have breakfast or dinner or lunch. So, but when you're not eating, how are you going to go out? So you start isolating yourself from the world. You start not going out. You start having mood swings through not eating, which is, again, a vicious circle. You be so angry with your family, and then your family obviously totally concerned. So they're trying to help you. and then you find them irritating because they're stopping you doing something that you think is good for you, is helping you. Because when you're not eating, you feel so good. You might faint, but you feel good about not eating because you're controlling them, right?
Yeah.
So they get angry with their family. Families fall apart from kids not eating with anorexia. They fall apart. With bulimia, a lot of families don't even find out. But anorexia is to a point that everybody finds out. They find it difficult to have relationship. But there's not that many anorexics that they do have a relationship. And friendships are affected. They don't want to see their friends because somewhere deep down, they know everybody is good, because it's impossible to see somebody that severely anorexic and not notice it and not have shock in your face. But because of that reason, a lot of them, they don't go out. So it affects their relationship enormously.
So sometimes the eating or like having an eating disorder affects your relationship, but you know, like you talked about wanting to have control, sometimes maybe their relationship is what's leading to an eating disorder.
Yeah, there is that. Normally that's when it starts. At school, somebody might have called you fat. That's a relationship, isn't it? Somebody at school said, oh, you're looking a little bit podgy today, lately, right? So that starts it. However, in the older clients, a lot of times it happens that their partner have said to them, you need to lose weight. And their partner likes skinny girls. Because of anorexia, mostly, it happens to a lot of boys as well, don't get me wrong, but it's mostly young girls. For the old, and then that carries on throughout their life, a lot of them. But for somebody that has been completely healthy, has had no health issues, you always look into their relationship with their partner, because a lot of times it's to do with their partner, that they keep saying to them, oh, you're fat. You could do with losing a little bit more. You could do with losing maybe like 5 kilos, when the person is completely healthy weight, and then they lose it, but to keep their partner, they carry on. And then it becomes an obsession.
Yeah.
And it becomes, I have to control this to keep him. You know, which is the same as when girls end up becoming addicts to cosmetic surgeries. A lot of times they're trying to please a partner.
Yeah.
So what is the development process of an eating disorder? Is it just something that, like, oh, someone called me fat, so it just happens? Or is it gradual, like it builds up to an eating disorder?
It normally builds up. These are the things that it could be a big, well, I say big factor, but it could not be a big factor to us. You know, you're a 6-year-old and somebody calls you fat in the playground. And then from that moment on, it could be really instant that you think, I'm not going to eat. But a lot of times it could be from the past traumas. It could be a lot of times is young girls that have been sexually abused, and the only thing they can control is their eating. And a lot of times they don't eat to become less attractive to the person that abuses them, or to punish themselves. You know, it's so sad, but a lot of times is to punish themselves, because they always feel that it was their fault that has happened to them, and it's been happening to them. So it's a form of punishment to themselves. So there's so many different layers behind it. It's not just, you know, we can't actually sit down and say there is only one reason that we get this, and this is the solution. There's so many different things. So working with people with eating disorder is so important to look at their background and let them talk to us, because most of the time they're holding a secret that they don't want to tell. It could be their mum always was on a diet. It could be the mum always said, oh my God, look at me, I'm fat. Oh my God, why are you eating that? Or a lot of, I've seen a lot of parents like, stop eating that. How much you're going to get fat, especially in our cultures as well, isn't it? You see someone, what is it the first thing you hear from somebody from our culture when they see you?
You've gained so much weight, or you've lost so much weight. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a summer I came back, and the first thing they were like, hi. And the first thing they said was I had gained weight.
Yeah. It's like there is never that I see a friend. I must have seen them last week that they don't make a comment about my weight, right? Whether you've got fat or they are excited that you've lost weight.
Yes, yeah.
Right? So when they get excited, that consequently makes you think, God, I look good. I'm going to lose weight more, right? So when you're a teenager, that can become an obsession, because every time you see someone, I always say, please don't tell young kids whether they have put on weight or they haven't. First of all, what are we telling them? We are telling them your looks are so important.
Yeah.
Your weight is so important. Your weight defines you. That's what we're saying, essentially, isn't it? Your weight defines you. If you're bigger, if you're smaller, oh, well done. No, I've heard grandmas, oh, darling, you're a little bit pudgy. People have got to be careful what you eat. It's like, but it comes from love. No, it doesn't. If you love someone, you love them as they are, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Because that person hasn't changed, right? I'm Nadia. Whether I don't know how many kilos, whether I'm 100 kilos or I'm 50 kilos, I'm still Nadia. Inside, I'm still me, right? If you're concerned about my health, if I get to that point that is concerning, yeah, that's something that you sit down and very gently approach it. And what has happened for you? Because if somebody gains that much weight, something must be happening in their life that they're not happy about. So you talk about it, you suggest for them to go to therapy and da-da-da-da-da. But on a daily basis, you keep, if I didn't sleep last night and wake up fatter, why are you telling me like the next day that you're sleeping? Oh my God, you're a little bit pudgier today. No, not really. And that's one of the things in our culture. Obviously I live in England. It's not like that at all. British people would never tell you put on weight. Yeah. There's absolutely no way. It's just the most impolite thing to say for them. They would never say, oh my God, you put on weight. What they do say is, oh, you look well. That is always a way of saying.
Yeah.
But very polite way of saying it. So we actually, we have to take responsibility as human beings for all these eating disorders. I think it is our responsibility. We are making people feel uncomfortable. We are talking about weight day in, day out. Why would you need to talk about people's weight? Kids, they get to about 10 girls, they get pudgier, a little bit puffier. Boys get to 14, they get puffier, and then they grow. Same with the girls. And those ages are the ages that they actually are more likely to develop eating disorder. And that is because of the comments that is being made at those ages.
Yeah. And sometimes, yes, like if it's affecting your health, obviously you need to do something. But sometimes I also think like the eating disorders, sometimes people encourage you to go on diets, and it's sort of hidden behind the idea of like, no, this is good for your health, this is important. But I also feel like it's maybe slightly, in addition to social media and beauty standards, it's slightly also like health experts, maybe they are, maybe they aren't, that go and talk about health issues in general that is due to excessive amount of fat. But like, how can you know whether you have excessive amount of fat, especially like, I'm sorry, I can't speak for you because I don't have your experience, but women need to have some sort of fat for the body to actually function well.
So excessively overweight, we can see,
Yeah.
right? And that is something that we could talk about for hours as well, by the way.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, we do have obesity issue that is unhealthy. And a lot of kids, so we have anorexia, but the anorexia is interesting. People have got more sympathy than somebody that is obese.
True.
Isn't it? So when you're obese, people keep telling you, oh my God, because they associate it as being greedy, right? Oh, he's so greedy, she's so greedy, she keeps eating. They associate with being lazy. Nobody actually thinks maybe they have, you eat your problems.
Yeah.
You either don't eat your problems or you eat them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Is that also an eating disorder? Like,
Yeah. God, yeah, that is an eating disorder that you eat and eat because, you know, when as a parent, you see your child all of a sudden in a short space of time, either put on a lot of weight or lose a lot of weight. Yes, you should be concerned as parents. That's something that you need to look at. But then that's not to say, oh my God, you pig, you've been eating so much. You don't say that as I hear a lot of parents do. You just say, what's been going on with you? Are you okay? Are you okay at school? What's happened? You have to look out for signs. Are they staying at home a lot more? Are they not hanging out with their friends anymore? Do they go out at weekends? Do friends contact them? You have to look out for these signs because they could be being bullied at school. I don't know what the bullying is there like, but here the bullying is quite bad at school. So are they being bullied? So therefore they actually don't know what to do, how they to deal. Because we don't, you know, as a teenager, you don't know how to control your emotions. You don't know how to speak, especially if you're a boy. Especially if you're a boy, you don't have that luxury of being able to speak, right? So, and also you'd be like, no, I don't want to go to a total stranger. You don't want to go to see a therapist. But so as a boy, it's easier to eat your emotions. You're upset, you eat. They're bullying you at school, you eat. The more you eat, the fatter you get, then the bullying becomes about your weight. Then that gives you issues for the rest of your life, but you can't stop eating because that's the only thing that gives you a break.
So something with like addiction, which you said like eating disorder is a sort of addiction, is that even if you sort of heal, you're still sort of, yes, you're a recovering addict, but you're sort of still an addict. So is it like even if you work on it, it might return, or how is it?
Yeah, it is an addiction and you always have to be on guard about it. And that's something that we help our clients. It's something for the rest of your life. You always have, there is always that chance you might fall back into it because it's your default, right? It's your default that you're upset, you eat. It's your default that you're upset and you think you're fat, you don't eat. It's your default that your boyfriend has finished with you, you go and throw up. Eat, and throw up, right? It's because you think, oh my God, maybe because I was too big.
Oh,
So this is something that is a lifetime treatment. This is not something that you stop. You know, I always think with eating disorder, it's like this addiction. I don't work with addiction, but this is an addiction.
Yeah.
So I work we work with it as an addiction. Is a lifetime commitment, is a lifetime. As soon as something might go wrong at work, because a lot of people that are anorexic, by the way, affects their work life. A lot of people don't work. A lot of our teenagers don't end up studying, don't end up getting a job, don't end up being in institutes for a long time, therefore no job. So we have to have a social plan as well for them to, after they recover, you actually provide for them to go to university if they want, to go to find a job that they want, to find out what is it that they're interested in. Because remember, for years, they haven't thought about anything else but food.
Yeah.
Right? So they haven't developed any skills and they haven't been given any skills, right? So, you know, the whole consent, rightly so, is been for them to get better. And once they get better, what do they have to go to? What do they have to live for? So that's when socially it's important for the governments to start having these plans in order for them to actually start doing different jobs. And it's the same as mental health issues, different type of mental health issues, that we don't have them, that they start finding jobs and they start going to work. So they have a purpose, that this stops them thinking about going back to not eating or overeating, right? Overeating seems to be less of a problem, even though it's a big problem, because they still can function in society. Well, it depends how overweight you are, but most of the time you can. So these are the things that, this is not just contained into a family. This is something that affects our societies. And there has to be long-term plans from the governments to be able to tackle this.
What are the steps? So when they come to you, how do you help them? How do you guide them?
Wouldn't guide them. It's
or what they need to take, like when they are on start.
The way I would do it, there is different type that they do, by the way. There's different type of tackling eating disorder. And what there is this, it's called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, that it gives you homework. I don't do that, by the way, but it gives you homework and it kind of says to you, when you're feeling like this, what do you do? And then they say, like, I don't eat. And then they say, write it down. And then, write down how much you eat or how much you don't eat. And then they give you like a series of homeworks. And then, but it's only a short-term one for 12 weeks. And it does help with, I don't think it helps with anorexia at all, but it helps with anxiety, for people with anxiety, people with OCD helps a little bit. It helps with people that can't get on a plane, or phobias, different kind of phobias to a certain extent. However, you're not looking at the root of the problem. You're looking on a surface level. So you're trying to change the behavior of the person when the same situation happens. So it does work because you're changing their cognitive behavior. However, they've got to that point for a reason. So how I would help is to help them go back. And I do a lot of inner child work with my clients, especially if they have eating disorder, because let's face it, most of our problems come from our childhood. Yeah. Right? So inner child work helps a lot for them to be able to speak and not be asked, what did you eat this week?
Yeah.
you know, not to be asked.
Yeah.
With kids that eat a lot, it helps to get the diary of what they're eating. It helps them, as in, they're never going to tell you the truth, to be fair. I mean, I don't tell the truth to myself. I just pretend that I don't remember that that kebab. You know, they're never going to tell you the full truth. That's okay. But it helps them to actually have some kind of structure, so to have an understanding what is a healthy food, what is not a healthy food. Because one of the problems, we don't have that problem is in our societies, because in general, our food is quite balanced and healthy. With people with anorexia is a deeper rooted one. They would be on medication as well. So you kind of help them slowly. And it's so important when I say slowly, it's important that the client goes the way they want to go. You cannot force them and say, tell me what happened to you when you were 7. Like, no, you don't take them there. They have to take their time to trust their therapist, and eventually, sometimes it might take a year. Sometimes it takes 1.5 years for a client to tell you the most important things and the most unbelievable trauma that has happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to have the patience and sit with them.
Well,
I mean, talking about trauma,
yeah.
what exactly is trauma?
What is trauma?
Give me hard questions.
Like, no, I know, like, it's just, there's not one.
No. Yeah, no, because trauma is means different things to different people, right? We have complex trauma, and we have simple. So I don't like to use simple, because trauma is trauma, not simple to the person that has happened to. So we have trauma, people with PTSD, had they been in the war, right? That's a complex trauma, because you've seen things that are awful and nobody should be seeing. And this is a part. Trauma to me means a lot, and I think is the root of a lot of issues that we have. Trauma to me obviously means a lot because I lived in the war and revolution before that as a young kid. And I have seen firsthand losing people through that. It's funny. When you're in huge trauma, especially as a child or as a human being, you cope. You don't even realize it. It becomes normality to you, right? And you live it. I remember when we had the war, we used to have red alert, and we had a shelter that we had all the food and everything in our house. So we opened the door and all the neighbors would come. I must have been like 7. No, it wasn't 7. It probably was 9 or something, or it went on till I was 15. And I loved it. I loved it as a young kid, because when do you get all your friends, all your neighbors, all your friends come to your basement? And they're sitting there, they're chatting, they're gossiping, they're eating, the red alert is gone and they're still there. When do you get it, right? It was fun for me. We would have to go and live when we were told that they're sending the planes. They would give us warnings, so we had to go and live in the woods. Oh my God. But then we were teenagers, loved it. Talking to the other boys, new boys, and it was just so much fun, right? At the time, it was not a trauma.
Yeah.
Right? We didn't feel that it was a trauma.
Yeah.
Then you get older, right? and then you think, you start behaving certain ways, and you just don't understand, why am I behaving like this, right? Why am I reacting to certain things this way? It in some ways makes you resilient, right? So for me, if something really drastic happens, I can deal with it so calmly. You know, my microwave got on fire, was flames going up. An Englishman was here screaming, and I was like, took it out of the socket, wet towel, I put it on it, and I came and sat down. And the funniest thing was, because I thought I'll sort it out later, right? Because the fire was out, the flame was out. My British friend kept saying to me, oh my God, why are you not distressed? Why are you not screaming? I was like, but there's no fire anymore.
Yeah.
But what do you mean? You're sitting here like nothing has happened. To her, that was trauma.
Yeah.
That's why I said the other story. To me, it was nothing, an accident, and we dealt with it. So that wasn't my trauma, because I've seen different kind of trauma.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it less of a trauma for her. I made sure that she doesn't feel like traumatic as much, because it wasn't really, it was just a little bit of fire. Right?
Yeah.
But as a therapist, I have to be so aware that when my client brings their trauma, I don't look at it and I don't belittle it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because I've suffered bigger trauma.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a challenge. That's been a challenge before for me when I first started, because it's like, what?
Yeah.
But it's not, because for them, being burgled was a trauma, right? For me, being in the rubbles was a trauma. Being bombarded on was a trauma. For them, being burgled. So, you know what? Mine was more complex. Fair enough. I can compare.
Yeah.
Theirs to mine. So everybody's got different threshold.
Yeah.
And you have to be aware of that threshold. You know, at the moment, I do feel that this generation keep talking about trauma, really, and you have to be a little bit more aware what trauma is, and you know, is to educate them what trauma is. But trauma is watching an accident happening. That could be a trauma. You know, it could be anything. If that person explains it and has seen it as a trauma, it is a trauma to that person. Right? It might not be a trauma to you and me, but to that person it's been a trauma.
Yeah.
So basically, anything could be a trauma, because at least in my generation and the younger generation, I feel like it's used a bit more freely to say somebody, I don't know, loses their phone. Oh, I'm traumatized. I don't know.
I mean, that is a traumatic experience these days. Come on.
You know, your parents don't let you go out to see your friends because you have an exam. Oh, my parents are the worst. I'm traumatized. They've traumatized me. So
yeah, it's used too loosely.
Yeah.
And that's something that we need to educate people. Narcissism. I find that is being used so easily. Everybody's ex was a narcissist.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody says, oh, my ex was a narcissist. That's why.
Oh God, yeah.
And it's like, do you know what narcissism is?
Yeah.
Like, it's just something becomes trendy.
Yes, yeah.
And we have to actually stop those words being trendy.
Yes.
And being used and thrown about so easily. Narcissism is something that lately is a trend.
Yes.
Everybody's a narcissist.
Yeah.
You open your mouth, you're a narcissist. You become someone's ex, you're a narcissist. You fall out with your friend is because you were a narcissist. It's trauma. Oh my God, I've gone through so much trauma. It's like, okay, let's just
Mm.
rein it in. Let's talk about this trauma.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you losing your phone, you know. And also it's all about educating people and allowing them to have, teaching them and helping them to have a little bit more capacity of dealing with everyday life. And that's not your fault, my generation fault, that we have brought up our children because of the traumas that we have been through. We've gone out of our way to make life so easy for our kids.
Oh,
So
yeah.
everything is a trauma. So I, for sure, take full responsibility for you guys. Right? Because you know what this is? This is intergenerational trauma. We have suffered trauma. We have given you trauma by making everything too big for you.
Mm.
And this has to stop somewhere. And I think is your generation's responsibility to start saying, no, life was hard for them. Look at other people's life. Look at your parents' life, especially for our regions that we are from, my age, a little bit younger than me and a little bit older than me. I'm not going to talk about like much, much older because, you know, they had famine and all different things they had to deal with. They didn't have anything. They didn't have anything to eat. Like I grew up, you know, we had sanctions.
Yeah.
We didn't like, we had the healthiest life, that's for sure. Our snacks was beetroot, cooked beetroot, because we didn't have chocolates coming. My family would send Mars and things, and I mean, as it happens, I actually really was a good thing because I really don't like chocolate because I haven't been brought up with it. But we would have broad beans, cooked broad beans as a snack.
Yeah.
Seeds, obviously, we all have seeds as snacks anyway. That's a different thing.
Exactly.
We had different things as snacks. We didn't have a lot. We had to queue up to buy milk. We had coupons. We had coupons to buy things. Didn't have a lot, right? So consequently, we make sure our kids have everything. We give them the latest iPhones, the latest designer clothes. So, you know, I'm happy to buy from Primark. I don't know whether you know what Primark is, but it's a cheaper brand. But, you know, for my children, I have to make sure that they have, you know, and we have to stop it. We have to stop it. We have to teach them the value of life and to appreciate what they don't have. Because as human beings, we never appreciate what we weren't given, right? They didn't have war. They don't have problem with phone. I mean, they phone and they have things delivered. We didn't have that.
Yeah.
Right? So the things, you know, the fact that we don't have like, you know, I always say, you don't have a big disease. You don't have, you know, be grateful for the things that God hasn't given you. Because a lot of things that God hasn't given us is a good thing.
Yeah, that's so true.
Right? So we need to teach this generation, you guys have the responsibility to educate yourself a little bit more and not allowing our trauma to be passed on to you, because the person that loses their phone and find that a trauma, that's because of their parents' fault. I take full responsibility that we haven't had any challenges. Like as a child, you haven't had any challenges. Everything has been at your disposal. So of course you're going to be like, oh, can't breathe. I haven't got my phone. I mean, I do. I think I would feel the same, but you know, for different reasons. I need emails.
Like lastly, I would love to ask you, so you talked about how trauma can lead to guilt. So for instance, like if someone does something wrong to you, even if it's not the person that's causing you trauma, you feel like it's your own fault. It could be like, how do you say, like, like numbness, maybe a feeling of numbness, which you call, sort of, yeah. But what other ways can we see or notice that someone is traumatized?
It's very difficult for everyday person to realize somebody is traumatized. It's very difficult to see the signs. As a therapist, it's easier. And the reason it's easier because the person comes there to get help.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
So it's easier. So they're more open to it. But on a daily basis, for us to recognize somebody has been traumatized, it's very difficult. If I didn't tell you that I lived in the war, would you have noticed that I had trauma? I cover it well because we learn as human beings, we put a mask on. I'm not Nadia. I'm Nadia, the therapist now.
Yeah.
To my friend, I'm a different Nadia.
Yeah.
My family, totally different.
Yeah, of course.
Totally different. To my son, I'm a mum.
Yeah.
I'm a mum. I've got authority and I've got love and I've got so many faults, by the way, right? Everybody has. So being a therapist, there's a lot of times people, I hear it saying, well, you're a therapist, you should understand this. No, I'm a therapist for 50 minutes when I have a client, but I'm still a human being, right? So to recognize who is traumatized is very difficult as a daily basis. Even for me, I might say, I don't analyze people.
Yeah.
It's just not me. I don't, even though that's a little bit of a lie. I do like analyzing, but that wasn't totally true. But on a daily basis, is somebody. I remember my mum, I always say, was the biggest influence in my life and the most positive influence in my life because she had so much empathy. The day that I have as much empathy as my mum had, I would feel really good. I remember when there was an Iran and Iraq war, and this one day we're watching TV and they're showing the Iraqi soldiers dead. And she started crying. And I must have been 9 or something. And I was like, Mommy, why are you crying? They're our enemies. She said, but no, they're not. They have moms and dads. They were forced to come here. They didn't want to be in a war. And now I'm a mum. And I'm like, wow, how much empathy can someone have to cry for the soldiers that came to your country, right? And that's ultimate understanding. So you have to have that kind of empathy to understand when somebody acts the way they do, that they might be related to a trauma. And I remember my mum, when somebody would do something to her that would hurt her, she would say, I don't think that was anything to do with me.
Oh, nice.
I think they might have a lot of other things that's happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is my, I can't do it all the time, but it's my motto in life is try to think about what that person might have gone through before they met you. Even that day, we don't know what happened. They might have had an accident. They might have had a fight with someone. They might have had, fallen out. They might have not eaten.
Yeah.
They're hungry instead of hungry. Try to have empathy for other people. I'm not going to go into, oh my God, they must have had a really horrible childhood. How do I know? I can't judge people like that. But what I could say is, let's see it from their perspective.
Exactly.
And once you do that, once you start looking at people from their perspective, and this has been a very difficult thing for me, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my God, I'm not judgmental, because believe you me, I am judgmental, right? And it's a difficult thing for me on a daily basis. I've perfected it, I think, in my therapy sessions. No judgment, nothing. You come to me, you're my client, no judgment. to my friends, to my family, to everybody around me. I can be judgmental. So it's a daily struggle for me to try to see things from the other person's perspective. And once you do that, your world would be a beautiful world, and so will the world around your people around you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for this session. It was great talking to you. I mean, like, we're kind of running out of time, but I could honestly just sit here and, like, you know, just think about these things.
Honestly, it's been a pleasure, guys. You've been absolutely lovely, and I felt really comfortable. And it's really, really nice to be able to chat with your generation. It's been really, really,
so much.
really lovely. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I have really enjoyed it.